Hey, how y'all doing? This is Mongo Slade, and today we're going to talk about NWA Shockwave, episode 4. Yes, I actually watched it. There have been people telling me, watch NWA, talk about NWA. Now, I heard that they were going to play the title switch for the TV title on this show. That's why I watched it. Because I'm a big fan of Elijah Burke. Always have been, even when he was in WWE. Even when he was in TNA, big fan of Elijah Burke. So that's why I watched this show. This show was an hour. Now, I wasn't talking about this show before because the Shockwave episodes were just replays of their stupid UWN Wednesday pay-per-views. I watched one of those shows, which featured Nick Aldis and Mike Bennett. I was so fucking bored. It was pretty short. I think it was only like an hour and a half, but I was so bored. That match sucked. And I was just kind of like, and I had to sit through some shit. Motherfuckers calling themselves the Wolf Zaddies. And I had to get pummeled with Friendship Farm. I was like, I'm never watching this shit again. Never watching it again. And I didn't. I kept my word. I don't lie. At least not to y'all. So then I saw that, okay, they're going to show the TV title switch on this episode. So I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And I didn't know that this was the last episode because the UWN pay-per-views have been canceled. Apparently there was some kind of COVID test and somebody came up positive. So there will be no more UWN episodes. Therefore, there will be no more NWA championship episodes. Therefore, the NWA essentially has once again taken a big, fat, juicy, hot, ale-covered and hot sauce and salsa. They've taken another L, as if the NWA couldn't catch enough breaks. They finally latched themselves onto somebody like, please drag us to the promised land. Please put us in front of a camera. Please help us. And then somebody got the COVID, and it was like, shit. 4 or 5 weeks into this thing. Shit. Cancel it all. It's all canceled. It's all fucked up now. And then they didn't exactly entice me to watch the rest of the show because they gave me the match I wanted first. So the first match was Zicky Dice versus Elijah Burke, or as they call him, the Pope. Sometimes, I still call him D'Angelo De Niro sometimes. Like, it's just a force of habit. I just got in the habit of calling him D'Angelo De Niro. So Zicky Dice was the... I had actually probably watched Zicky Dice just a few times on NWA Power. He wasn't somebody that I saw a lot of or that I paid a lot of attention to. But I know that Zicky Dice was really in the middle of some nonsense because he wanted out of his contract because NWA wasn't running and everybody else was. Then he couldn't get out of his contract because he was a TV champion. Then he had to lose the belt, which is the only reason I even knew this thing even happened, is because he wanted out of that contract. So again, they did this match just basically so Zicky Dice could drop the belt. So I didn't know, that he had not defended the title even once before he won it. I mean, after he won it, he won the match. He won the title. I don't know. They said 232 days ago before the title switch. He had not defended it at all because he won it, and I guess the pandemic hit. So this was his first and only defense. So he attacked D'Angelo De Niro before the match started. D'Angelo De Niro. He attacked Elijah Pope before the match started. Elijah Burke before the match started. And Burke did a good job of selling. Dice beat him up. Slammed him into a table, and then he kicked him. He did a good job of coming across as really ruthless and being vicious and. The outlandish Zicky Dice. I don't know what he means by outlandish. Maybe it's because he got them goofy tattoos. He looked like Brian Knobs from the Nasty Boys. He looks a lot like one of the Nasty Boys. It's just really bizarre. So basically, Zicky Dice cut some promos while because before the match started. This was all before the match started because the match had a time limit. So. He beat him up before the match, and then he basically says, "Oh, the match is not going to happen because I just basically killed Elijah Burke." And then he started cutting promos on Billy Corgan. Started talking about, "Oh, Billy Corgan is chatting with middle-aged women on Facebook and writing bad Smashing Pumpkins records, and said the match is over, and he's gonna run off with the TV title and go defend it somewhere else. And then he threw it up. He in between he would go out and kick Burke a couple of times, and he would go back in the ring and continue his promo. And he would say like, hey, the dirt sheets, which said that I had been fired and the title was vacated. He was like, nope, still champion. Kind of throwing a little bit of dirt on the dirt sheets. But I mean, everybody kind of knew that when he showed up that he was just coming in to do the job. So Pope did a good job selling outside the ring, kind of selling that he was, getting beat up. He didn't even get his jacket off, his coat rather. He kind of crawled into the ring and huffed and puffed, and the ref was like, "Can you continue?" He's like, "Yeah." And then they started, fighting, and Dice, started to dominate. And then in the corner, you started getting that fire up. You started, Pope started throwing them jabs, and he just kind of went full Dusty, like four or five lefts before the nut grab in the right hand, and then it was pretty good. Like from that point, that was his his comeback. It was a little too early for a comeback, which everybody kind of figured that, even Zicky Dice, who cut it off. So like he cut the comeback off, So they did some really decent stuff. There was some triple German suplexes from the Pope. The Dice kicked Pope in the balls, and the referee was distracted. But that wasn't enough. It didn't get the 3 counts, and Elijah won with the Elijah Express. Which is the running double knees to the back in the corner, which is the weirdest finish in wrestling. It is very, 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 very weird. And he pinned him 1, 2, 3. And then, so the match. Well, I didn't tell this, but the TV title in the NWA has a time limit of 6 minutes and 5 seconds. So you have to win in 6 minutes and 5 seconds. I think that should be longer. I mean, I get that you're on internet, but I think that a TV title match that's less than 10 minutes, it kind of forces everybody to work really fast, and do things in a sort of jumbled way. But they do a smart thing. This was very smart. They cut off the babyface shine, which is something you don't need. The shine is basically when the babyface is winning in the beginning of the match. So they basically cut that off, and they just went straight into the heat, which of course extended the story because it seemed to make more sense. And so after the match, it was a pretty good match. I didn't have a problem with it. It was about 5 minutes and 30 seconds, 5 minutes and 45 seconds. So after the match, the new TV champ, Elijah Burke, he thanked UWN for keeping the NWA alive. He thanked all these other people for keeping the NWA alive. And then he cut his Dusty Rhodes promo. Now, this is the thing about Elijah Burke, man. See, everybody used to say Dusty used to act like he was a black preacher. Now you got this dude who calling himself a black preacher, and he's doing his best Dusty Rhodes impression. Like, he's been doing Dusty a long time. he's been doing Dusty a long time. So he kind of apes the Hard Times promo, where he basically talks about uncertainty. He says that the pandemic gripping the country brought a lot of uncertainty. People struggling on unemployment, uncertainty. Zicky Dice held the title 232 days. We didn't know if he was coming or going. Uncertainty. Uncertain no more. The Pope, who respects history, now has the belt. And I was like, okay. Okay. A little too on the nose with the Dusty. I mean, he's already doing like the Dusty spots and stuff like that. I'm like, bro, turn it down. But I do love Elijah Burke, and I'm just very upset that he's not in a major promotion. See, this is the good thing about the NWA. They have a lot of good talkers. Stevens is a weirdo, but he's really good at character and cutting promos. Eli Drake, kind of a stick in the mud, very good at promos and character. Burke, fun, a little too much like Dusty, really good at cutting promos and character. That is the good stuff about the NWA. That's why I loved watching NWA Power, because it was uh, good old school character guys who could trash talk and snap off the cuff, and it was faster paced, and it was very interesting. The second match on the card was Nick Aldis versus some guy named Jordan Clearwater, whom they called the Golden Boy. I've never been a fan of Aldis, even when he was Magnus. I was never a fan. This match was pretty basic. It was very basic, and this seems to be the oldest match, is that he has basic wrestling matches. Jordan Clearwater used a move that I actually like. It's called the Bulldog. I've always been sort of a mark for the Bulldog. It's just a simple move that just makes a lot of sense. Like, outside of the part where you have to run with your opponent, just running somebody's face into the mat. Wow. Crazy, gotta be crazy effective, right? You would think most people would use like some type of bulldog finish. With your whole body weight, boom. I love Dustin's bulldog. Like Dustin Rhodes, Goldust. When he do the whip you to the ropes, bang you off the ropes, and then he hit the ropes and comes back with the bulldog. That's gorgeous shit, man. That's gorgeous. That is a finish. I don't understand why people don't use that as a finish. Anyway, Aldis obviously won with the Kingston Cloverleaf. And then this is when I started thinking, what's going on here? Because they had already showed the TV title match. I didn't know what was on the card. I had no idea. I didn't know what was left. And then I found out that Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa, their match, which switched the women's championship, was going to be on this episode too. So I finally got to watch that. And this match was great. It was babyface versus babyface, but it was technical. It was very aggressive. They shook hands. They showed respect first. But they really did a good job. Thunder Rosa took the early part of the match, really, forcing Serena Deeb to sell, which is Serena Deeb's strength. Her strength is in her selling and her technique. Serena Deeb's offense began actually pretty good, with the guillotine choke over the second rope. And then she did a rude awakening over the second rope to kind of injure the neck area. And so now you got Serena Deeb, who's getting her shoulder worked on. And now Serena Deeb is going after the neck of Thunder Rosa. And then, out of nowhere, she started targeting the knee as well. So she didn't just target one body part. She went for another as well. Very aggressively going after the knee. Some really good submission stuff. Really good technical stuff. Serena Deeb doesn't have a personality worth shit, but she is a good wrestler. And she's very good. And Thunder Rosa is really good too. And the finish came with a counter. Basically, Thunder Rosa got caught slipping. And she ended up in a victory roll. And she got pinned. And they shook hands, and that was pretty much it. It was a great match. It was legit fun. I know that it's weeks old, but, not knowing the finish made it worth it. It was a really good match. Like, you would expect, like, they would have just, gave Thunder Rosa a clean job, which it was. It was a clean loss, but she didn't get flattened in the middle of the ring and, and all that type of stuff. It was a counter. It was a counter finish. It was very good. So after the match, Serena Deeb cut a promo basically saying that, her plan was to come to the NWA and rewrite history. And she talked about the history of the women's championship, going back to Mildred Burke. And, from Mildred Burke, which was, 1930 or 1920 something, to present day, even though that would be older than the world title, so it couldn't be, because the world title was created in 1945, I believe. Wasn't it 1945? Well, they probably say, well, it's 1905, which is bullshit. But I think the NWA created their title in 1945 or 1943 or something like that. But this, basically, she talked about she's going to defend the title with all due respect, all due honor, and, all the good babyface stuff. And so then I really was thrown for a loop, because it was like, okay, now we're going to do the tag team championship, which is the main event, which is the tag team champions were Eli Drake and James Storm, and they took on Aaron Stevens and the Question Mark. Except the Question Mark was really some guy named J.R. Kratos. Now, I had seen the Question Mark before, and it was kind of slick what they did. Well, it wouldn't stand up in any court of law. So basically, Aaron Stevens was in the ring by himself, doughy and out of shape, clearly putting on the COVID-20. And then he says that, he didn't know where the Question Mark was, but he's sure the Question Mark would be there. And then he, gave it a couple of seconds as, Drake and Storm was kind of like, what's going on? And then this big Bulbasaur guy basically knocked both of them down. And then he introduced this J.R. Kratos dude as the question mark. And then he says, well, you can't prove that it's not because the question mark wrestles with a mask on. So you can't prove that it's not this guy, but you obviously can because you can see the question mark's body. So, you can see his arms and shit. Like, we know this guy isn't the question mark, but technically we don't know what the question mark looks like. And this was, of course, during the pandemic, so maybe he worked out. So that was kind of the gimmick going into this. So this match was pretty standard, where they just kind of all fought outside the ring, and then they had a pretty standard tag team match. I really enjoy Eli Drake's work, and I love James Storm. I've always been a big fan of James Storm. Even back when he was in America's Most Wanted, big fan of him. Big fan of Beer Money. I told you my favorite moment in TNA history, the only thing I really remember is when he won the title. I love when he won the title. That is a fantastic moment in TNA wrestling history. To me, it's like number one. Next to Kurt Angle showing up, it's number one probably. Number two is James Storm winning the title. Because it felt like finally, like it was one of the greatest stories. And then it led to one of the greatest stories in TNA history. So I've always been a big fan of James Storm. I kind of started falling off on Impact when Eli Drake was the champion. But I do remember liking him before I kind of stopped watching it, because I think that era between him and EC3 is not my favorite. Like that whole global, right when they was going to global, as Matt Hardy was kind of leaving and coming, and they was going fuck the owl. That whole era, that when Alberto Del Rio was there and Lashley was kind of on his way out. That's not my favorite era of TNA. I was not feeling that at all. I don't even remember what year that was. Was that 2016 to 2018 maybe? When they originally became Impact and they stopped going by TNA, that wasn't my favorite. But Drake and Storm was pretty dominant early after the outside the ring fight. So they did a very special heart attack, which was pretty cool. Like, if you've ever seen the heart attack, the Heart Foundation finish, Storm and Drake did that. Storm held him up while Drake ran down the ramp and I don't think he did a springboard. I think he jumped over it and did the clothesline part, which is pretty dope. So the finish came where Stevens hit Drake, and I believe in the throat with a chair outside the ring. The referee didn't see it. While the referee was distracted, Kratos kicked Storm in the nuts and pinned him. So we had new tag team champions. They switched all the titles in the NWA and did not make a splash whatsoever. Very, very, very weird decision making. I've seen people say basically Billy Corgan should give up on the NWA because it's so snake bit. Like, they had this really good partnership with the ROH, and then that fell through because they wanted to do their own show, which was NWA Power. And then they were doing NWA Power and Ring of Honor at the same time to just make sure their title was visible and to share talent. And then that kind of fell through. They kind of decided to separate. And then they decided to do all of their own stuff. They had Power, which was banging. Power was very good. Then they just started hitting the skids, man. The NWA is in such disarray. I don't know what you can do. There is nothing to sell. Like, for anybody who's like, oh, you should just sell it. Like, what is there to sell? Like, you just own the likenesses to the belts and that kind of stuff. Like, you really don't have like a library. Like, they don't have much of a library. They probably got like 2 or 3 pay-per-views, right? And that's about it, And I guess, some DVDs from some house shows that they did, like the big thing that Cody dropped the belt to Aldis. That was about it, Like, I think it was like NWA 70, I think that was. And that's up on YouTube now. So really, they don't have that much of value. Their talent is jumping ship left and right because, the company isn't working. They don't have an arena. They don't have anything. So, if I was Billy Corgan and I need to partner with some organizations, I would not go to AEW because the first thing they're going to want to do is put the belt on Kenny Omega. And Nick Aldis shouldn't be the odd man out. Like, look, I understand the business is star driven, and Nick Aldis is not as big a star as Kenny Omega. He needs to go somewhere where he can be sort of at least acknowledged as being a top guy. So ROH is great for that because they respect the NWA. MLW could also be a good spot for that if they were to be able to work that out. You know, maybe working with AAA, or maybe trying to make it a little bit of lucha. It's just they need to do something if the NWA is going to survive. Maybe some type of working relationship with Impact. Maybe that could work, or New Japan. But the NWA has attached itself to New Japan for years. They would have like rando Japanese dudes like Tenzan being the NWA world champion. They've been doing that since the 1990s. It's basically just the Japanese, the belt the Japanese guys can win and say they were world champions in America. That's it. But I don't know. I don't want the NWA to die, but for it to watch it play second fiddle to the AEW like Impact is doing, I'm not a fan of that either. Like, I'm not a fan of watching the NWA get kicked around like they're kicking around Impact right now. Impact has they're not seeming to benefit from this at all, from this little partnership. So I don't see how NWA would benefit. They're not really benefiting that much from their women's champion being on AEW because AEW doesn't use the women. So, I don't know. If you got any idea on how to save the NWA, outside of sell it to WWE or sell it to AEW, let me know in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. Please donate. I would appreciate that. Especially if you asked me to do this. Then I would really appreciate it if you donated. But thank you guys for your time anyway. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll talk to you guys later.